Hello. All right. Welcome everybody. We are live right now here from Lake Atitlan, Guatemala. And we're gonna have a live session with Marshall Tyler from Field Trips. I don't know how is the quality right now because we just had a lightning storm and yeah. So right on. Okay. Chile.
Hi, Canada.
Hey.
Hey, Marshall, can you hear me well?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I
Great.
cannot see you yet, but I can hear you.
Oh, really? I can see myself and I can see you.
Fantastic. So you're doing a little bit better than I am. So yeah, thank you for tuning in and doing this live with us. And so maybe you can give a little download of who are you and what is it that Field Trip is doing for our audience, and then I can give a little download of who am I and what is Fungi Academy for your audience.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so I am the Director of Research at Field Trip Health. And at Field Trip Health, our goal is to use psychedelics to improve well-being. We're kind of doing this through 3 separate verticals. So we have one vertical that really focuses on the clinical aspects. So we're opening up clinics around the US and in Canada to start with, and ultimately in other countries around the world. The idea is those clinics will be doing psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy, starting with ketamine because it is approved right now, but ultimately moving on to any other psychedelic that might get approved by the FDA. And that's the clinical infrastructure. We also have a drug development arm where we're pursuing novel psychedelic molecules that we think might prove to be particularly beneficial for the treatment of neuropsychiatric disorders. And then we have the work that we're doing down in Jamaica, which I'm heavily involved with, where we're studying psychoactive fungi and mostly psilocybin producing species, but also some other species that don't produce psilocybin but are still psychoactive. So that's sort of the lowdown. We're trying to understand them at a really deep chemical and biological level.
Cool. Yeah, so I give a little lowdown what's happening here. So my name is Oliver. We are here in Fungi Academy right now in Lake Atitlan, Guatemala. It's kind of a rural place, and we have been a mushroom school and an intentional community for a while. So we are offering transformational learning experiences for people who love mushrooms and all kinds of mushrooms, being it edible, medicinal, or psychoactive. And we've noticed kind of like ourselves and like a lot of beginner cultivators that a lot of the initial interest in mushroom cultivation and in the world of mushrooms mycology comes from somebody being like, okay, I want to grow some magic mushrooms. And because of that, we at some point even started asking people who came to our courses and workshops of like, okay, this workshop is about, oyster mushroom cultivation, but who is really here? Raise your hands, who is here and who's interested about magic mushrooms. And we started noticing that most of the time, over half of the people were actually interested in that. And so right now we are having our first online course that we just kind of launched in this beta launch state right now. That's about sacred mycology. So it's a sacred mycology course, teaches people the easiest, best possible way to grow mushrooms. And then there's going to be another course after that that talks about how to use them in a safe and beneficial way. So that's the lowdown what's happening on this side. And it seems like with you, Marshall, we are kind of overlapping in this psychedelic mushroom place. And we talked like a little bit before this live. We already talked a little bit, and there was some really interesting stuff that you kind of mentioned. When beginners are growing mushrooms, they usually start with Psilocybe cubensis, but you said that, that you guys are looking into different other mushrooms that might be having different, consistency of this psychedelic and other type of molecules inside that you guys are researching into. So I don't know, maybe you can talk about a little bit that, or how is this happening?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the underlying hypotheses that we're really trying to dig into in the lab in Jamaica is whether or not the psilocybin producing fungi produce different effects than psilocybin in isolation. So for those of you who have been keeping up with the psilocybin research and psilocybin as it's being used in clinical trials, they're using the pure synthetic molecule. It's just psilocybin. Whereas when you consume psychoactive fungi, you're consuming not just psilocybin, but a host of other tryptamines along with that may or may not contribute to the overall psychological and physical effects, either positively or negatively. So what we're really trying to do is to understand which molecules are contributing to the overall experience and how can we harness that knowledge in a useful sort of way. Because like you said, most people are cultivating Psilocybe cubensis. And I mean, there are clear reasons for that. It's probably the easiest, or at least one of the easiest species of psychoactive mushrooms to cultivate. And so it's a great one to start out with. But if you look at the historical use of psychoactive mushrooms, Psilocybe cubensis actually isn't among the most highly regarded in places like Mexico, where there's a rich sort of historical use of these psychoactive species. So it's possible that because they regard these other species as more conducive to spiritual insight or healing or whatever it might be, that the alkaloid profiles are actually different and those are contributing to the overall effects. So yeah, that's what we're digging into, and we think there are a lot of interesting species beyond Psilocybe cubensis.
Okay, well, which species would you see as the next interesting candidates that would still be rather easy to cultivate? Like if you look further from Psilocybe cubensis, what would be making sense for the next level of things to try out? What do you think are the interesting ones?
Yeah, so I mean, there are a lot of interesting ones that aren't too difficult to cultivate. So for example, Psilocybe mexicana, Psilocybe tamponensis, those are both truffle-forming species. So they form these hardened masses of mycelium underground, and those can be harvested and consumed, and they do contain psilocybin. They'll also produce mushrooms, and so it's not too hard to fruit those species as well. So you can get both truffles and mushrooms from those species. There's also a species, a tropical species known as Paniolus cyanescens, and that one is more finicky than Psilocybe cubensis, but not incredibly difficult to cultivate. And it is more potent, so it tends to be 2 to 3 times more potent than Psilocybe cubensis. And the effects, at least anecdotally, are quite different in a way that is positive for some people and negative for others. But, it's something that I think everyone has to experience because it's hard to get data on the actual psychedelic experience right now from these different species. So those would be a few of the species that are not especially difficult to cultivate, but have different properties from the most commonly cultivated species.
Yeah, I mean, I think cyanescence is growing also in United States on the West Coast there, like in the wild. You can get it from there.
Yeah, definitely.
So there are a few questions here, and like everybody who's tuning in, you can leave questions, and so we answer to some of them that seem like good. And here is right now a few. One is mushrooms being regulated in a pharmaceutical way. So, like, what do you think about this mushrooms becoming regulated as pharmaceuticals? Well, I'm guessing magic mushrooms.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So what, like, the clinical trials right now, synthetic psilocybin.
You want me to answer this first?
Did I lose you? Are we back?
Yes, we're back.
Okay.
So I just like we just had a massive lightning storm here. I'm in rural Guatemala, and like electricity went away for a while, and now finally we have a better internet. So I'm back. This should
Nice.
work now. So we have a question here. I don't know. Did you already answer this? How
No,
do you?
I haven't answered it. I did hear it though. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the question was, how do you feel about mushrooms being regulated in a pharmaceutical way?
Yeah.
And I think it's unlikely that mushrooms will ever be regulated in that way. Certainly synthetic psilocybin will be regulated in a pharmaceutical type way. But when we talk about magic mushrooms as the fungus, that won't be regulated in the same sort of way. And there are a few different routes it could take towards regulation. So there's a sort of medical route that it could take where it's only approved for medical conditions in certain countries. And then there's also the route of just full-on legalization where it's regulated, like alcohol's regulated. There's an age limit and a couple other limitations, but otherwise anyone who meets those qualifications can buy it. But some states are actually trying, at least within the US, some states are trying some really interesting ways of regulating psilocybin mushrooms. So some of you might be familiar with Oregon and the initiative they're pursuing, which will legalize psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy. And it'll do it not just for people who have a diagnosable psychiatric condition, but actually anybody who thinks they could benefit from using magic mushrooms. And so if it passes, it's going to be on the ballot this November. And if that passes, that means in the state of Oregon, you'll be able to legally consume psychedelic fungi in a controlled setting under the supervision of a licensed therapist. But it's a really interesting model because it's not as nearly as constrained as the sort of medical model. And there's a lot more leniency in terms of what the clinical space can look like and who is able to get this kind of treatment. So personally, I feel like there are many different routes towards regulation that can work and be beneficial. I think that one's one of the more interesting ones in Oregon. I mean, I think we're very supportive of all the decriminalization movements happening around the world right now, where the use and possession of these psychoactive substances is being decriminalized. So I think that's, a net positive for society, and that's something we're very supportive of. But in terms of regulation, that's a different question, and it's a little trickier. But I think multiple different models will emerge, and there are a lot of ways to approach it.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, like, this is all has to do a lot with like United States and then somewhat with Canada as well. That's where the most exciting things seem to be happening when it comes to legislation change. In Europe, I know that there was at some point there was talk about making medicinal herbs like that you can only sell them in pharmacies. So like I see that it would be possible, but it just sounds completely ridiculous. But who knows? But I also agree with you. I don't see that. I see that with the psilocybin and the substances on itself, but like as mushrooms as a whole thing, I don't think it will be like you go to a pharmacy and you get a bag of mushrooms.
Right.
Yeah.
And the question, like one of the important questions I think to consider is how much regulation does there need to be around the experience surrounding consumption? So there's the drug itself, which can be regulated, but then also like this profound experience that people are having and the preparation beforehand and the integration afterwards. All those are really essential components of whatever outcome people are searching for when they use these mushrooms. And so I think careful attention has to be paid to regulating not just the drug itself, not just the mushrooms themselves, but everything surrounding that.
Yeah. So there's another kind of question that goes with it. It's also from OCD Princess actually, and maybe I can expand on it a little bit because she asks, how do you feel about synthetic psilocybin, which is what I understand most of the clinical studies are being made of, not with the mushroom itself. And as I understand, what you are kind of researching into is how do these different molecules that are inside the mushrooms work together, and maybe there is some synchronistic synergistic ways that they work together. So yeah, so what's the difference in synthetic one, and what is the research? Maybe you can a little bit expand further that you are looking into how these different molecules work together.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, synthetic psilocybin, I think it's great in that it's a drug that can be made in a way that's really highly controlled. So when you're getting synthetic psilocybin, you're always getting, almost 100% pure psilocybin. Whereas mushrooms vary. Even between two mushrooms picked from a single culture, you'll get variations in tryptamine content. And so it's really hard to control psilocybin production in a biological way, whereas in a synthetic way, it's a lot easier to control. And so that's one of the beauties of chemical synthesis, is that there's a high level of control in the whole process, and that level is difficult to achieve with biology. But do you lose anything when you go to synthetic psilocybin? Are we losing out by not looking at these other alkaloids and how they're interacting in either synergistic or antagonistic ways? It's an open question, and it's hard because that starts with like a fundamental understanding of what components of the psychedelic experience are beneficial. Because right now we're largely considering the treatment of people with neuropsychiatric disorders or the betterment of well-being. So certain components of the psychedelic experience might be more essential than others for that sort of outcome. So for example, if you look at these questionnaires that are given to patients after they have a profound journey with psilocybin, they look at factors like oceanic boundlessness, which is this idea of the ego dissolving and you feel like you're going into this ocean of oneness with the world around you in a positive sort of way. So the opposite to that would be anxious ego dissolution, where you feel your ego dissolving, but there's a lot of anxiety involved. It's almost like you're fighting this dissolution of the ego. And what studies have shown is that oceanic boundlessness, that positive ego dissolution, is correlated with outcomes. So the more you get that ego dissolution with all these positive emotions, the better the outcome. So it's possible that some alkaloids within the mushrooms can help to push the experience more in that direction, and sort of avoid this anxious response that a lot of people end up having, which can be beneficial. It's not like it's always the case that that's negative, but in many cases it's more negative than the opposite, which is this positive experience of ego dissolution.
Okay, that's actually really good. So what I'm hearing is like, it definitely the setting and the context which the psychedelics are taken, or the mushrooms or the psilocybin, but also there might be something that actually has to do with the other molecules that are inside the mushrooms itself. That's really curious. So what else? What other shrooms mix best with magic mushrooms? I can answer that. I personally like to do the Stamets stack, like lion's mane mushroom and microdosing. But I do add also like almost daily cordyceps and reishi into my mix. I have not like experienced doing this with a larger like macro doses, so I don't know about that.
What do you notice? What do you notice from those mushrooms? What sort of differences?
So it's difficult to say because placebo apparently works, but like 40% of the times or something like that. Yeah. So like there's definitely my own like strong belief that mushrooms are good medicine for me. But when it comes to the microdosing, then it's definitely it's noticeable. Like I can definitely notice, and there seems to be like a sweet spot. What I've noticed is a lot of people, and I mean, like there's a debate in the psychedelic community of like what is truly a microdose and what is a mini dose and what is a museum dose and what is like a homeopathic dose actually. And so whatever, but like what I have out of my own experience, like trying it both with LSD and trying it also with the mushrooms, I found out that there is a certain dosage when I already slightly feel it, and this is a while it's a great dose and it's a great state to be in, it's not a sustainable one for me. I cannot function in that state, let's say for like, if I do that for weeks and weeks and go through this, and it just, like, when I'm good, it's good, but when something happens that is a little bit ungrounded or not, it amplifies it. And so like, it doesn't seem to bring more like calm, peace and focus to me necessarily, while it is, well, still a nice experience. So and also because mushrooms are different, like sometimes the potency of the mushrooms, like even like you said to me when we're talking, like even the different mushrooms itself can have different potency. And so because of that, I try to actually find where is this spot where I go a little bit too much and then I go a little bit down from that. And this is the good place. And out of that place, one of the main things that for me, that is like a takeaway that's important is I find I'm more like patient. I'm patient and empathetic, like open, and really, if I have a conversation with somebody, I can really fully be present and really take everything in that's happening. So that would be one of the biggest ones. There are some other things, like for instance, I might be able to stretch my body actually more than I usually can, which is an interesting one. For working purposes, yes, sometimes, but like I have not with mushrooms at least realized that I am this like in this hyper focused way, like with LSD a little bit more, but with mushrooms I have not seen it. But yeah, the empathy and the patience is what definitely is like really valuable for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think it's another open question how microdosing sort of fits into the whole scheme of things in psychedelics. Because most of the work that's been done with psilocybin so far has been pretty massive doses. So we're talking like the equivalent of 3 to 5 grams dried mushrooms in a pure synthetic psilocybin form. And people are having these profound experiences, and the changes are very lasting. So they'll last for months, if not years, after the single experience. And microdosing, on the other hand, it doesn't produce these profound effects, and the effects that it does produce don't tend to be lasting based on the evidence we have available. So it tends to produce effects on the day of, but not necessarily lasting effects. So the question is, how can that fit in? Like, is there a place for microdosing? Is there a place for a larger dose? How do they kind of work together or against each other? I think that's a very open question. Frankly, there's not enough research that's been done on microdosing. We're still very early on that compared to the sort of research that's been done in a rigorous way with larger doses. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. But the early data at least suggests that these larger doses are having very transformative and lasting effects compared to microdoses. But maybe microdosing would be a way to sustain those benefits that you get from a larger dose.
Yeah, like there is this analog that goes around a lot in the psychedelic community that doing a large dose is like going to the dentist, and doing a microdose is like brushing your teeth or flossing your teeth afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what else. Do you want to say something? Do you have a question, whatever, or do I take another one from the people here?
You can take one, yeah, if you see one.
Okay, so let's see what this one is. What type of tools to use alongside mushrooms to prepare for or improve the trip? So yeah, like in a therapeutic settings, how would that happen? Do you know something about that, Marshall?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the most important tools that's available to patients, at least, is the therapist, right? Because they're walking the patient through what the experience is going to be like. They're really forming a strong bond with the patient. And so then when the time for the experience comes, and there's very careful attention paid to mindset and setting, and of course the patient's in a better mindset because they have this therapeutic bond with the therapist. But yeah, I mean, I think if you look beyond the clinical setting, there's obviously a bunch of people who are using these drugs recreationally, and they don't really have that sort of access to a psychotherapist that someone in a clinical trial would right now, or someone who's using ketamine in the clinic would right now. And so I think there's a sort of gap there. And actually, one of the things we're trying to do at Field Trip is fill the gap with an app. So we have the Trip app. It should be launching shortly. And the idea behind that app is to actually provide a lot of context around the experience in terms of preparation, the experience itself. There will be music and meditations and things to help facilitate a good experience, a positive experience, and journaling and all of that, so that any insights that you have during the experience can be recorded and saved and then looked at after the experience. And then this whole integration component to make sure you're really following up with those insights that you had during the experience itself. So we're hoping the app is a way to get this out to the millions of people who right now don't have that sort of access to a psychotherapist and a very controlled environment. Hopefully this provides them some knowledge and some an additional tool for them.
Yeah, I would like to answer this question as well, but maybe you just kind of tell where people can learn more about that app. You have like right now you can log in, like get into the beta test or something like that.
Yeah, right now you can sign up to beta test it. I think there was an article published in the Wired magazine. Maybe someone can comment with the link or something if they know it, and that goes into some of the details of the app and where you can request the beta.
So, but basically you can go to fieldtriphealth.com, right?
Yeah, I think it should be on. I actually haven't.
It is there. I saw that.
Okay.
There's a place.
You know better than I do.
You work there, brother.
Thank you. You know better than I do.
Okay, yes, you see tripapp.co. Great, thank you, Alex.
There we go.
Yeah. So what type of tools to use alongside mushrooms to prepare for or improve the trip? So I have no experience. I mean, like I've had an experience with a therapist, but I personally am not a therapist. Don't do it like this. What we are kind of more interested in here in Fungi Academy is peer-supported psychedelic journey work, and it's kind of the same thing that Marshall just said, that like not everybody has access to therapists, and at the same time there is so much research coming out, and people are like, yeah, where is the menu? Where can we order? How can I be part of this therapy? You know, and but there are other things that you can do and other ways that you can make your experience more powerful, more beneficial, more safe, and like some of the ways is, doing it together. Like I said, like the therapist really matters, and like it's like the rapport that you have with the therapist. The better the rapport is, the better the therapy session is, But the same is true with your friends that you truly trust and love, and maybe they all already have experience as well with this. So I would say that a good tool is a good friend have with you in a journey. So, and especially if you are not so experienced yourself, then that's definitely one of the things. What else I like to use is here in Guatemala, there is a lot of cacao, and in Central America, there's cacao, and cacao seems to be like a really good, like this mellow kind of medicine, opens the heart, like brings out kind of empathy, and it's a really nice medicine. And so like I find it beneficial in two ways, because I don't know, does anybody who's like kind of tuning in right now, have you been in a cacao ceremony? Like just cacao, no mushrooms, only cacao. And so it's happening quite a lot here. And so I find it's a very accessible way of kind of practicing ceremony and being, without it being this intense, like mushroom trip, for instance. And you can already bring in some of the ceremonial elements in an authentic way and practice with these. And I think, and then the other side of it is cacao seems to be going really well together with the mushrooms, like in these parts of the world, cacao used to be a very kind of honored medicine by the ancient Mayan people at some point, as also were the mushrooms, the Tenonanacatl. So right now, there is not a living tradition here in Guatemala anymore. There is in Mazatec, in Mexico, but not in here. So I do feel that this cacao together, like have a hot cacao, powdered mushrooms inside, and cacao is a vascular dilator. Like makes your blood vessels bigger, and blood moves faster. So it kind of seems to be working faster with the help of cacao. And if you're having a nighttime ceremony, then I like cacao also because it a little bit keeps you awake, because you can first get a little bit tired before the mushrooms properly kick in. And I like, because of that, cacao. For people who have heart issues, it's kind of not really recommended, or only a little bit. So if you have heart issues, then definitely look into first what is okay for you or isn't. But yeah, the tool of cacao is something that I absolutely love. And another tool which I feel is like super, super important, like for me, and I've gotten some amazing results out of that, is music. Either live music and singing, if you have the, like if you have the opportunity to have that, or a playlist, a recorded playlist. And I know that there's this guy called Mendel Kalen. You can check out his playlists in Spotify or whatnot. And if you look my name, Oliver Merivee, you will find also I've made some playlists. I made it according to 4 hours, and like following the inspiration of Stanislav Grof's 4 basic perinatal matrices, which is an interesting topic, which is beyond the scope of this one. If you're interested in that, have a look at it. It's a curious one. Okay, paste good. I hope this answered your question. What else? Okay. Should I smoke weed while taking mushrooms? Well, so I really don't know. Like I don't know how to answer this question, because like it really depends. We cannot even tell you should you take mushrooms, because you might be in a place where it's not legal to do that, or you might be in a place where it's not even legal to do mushrooms. So should you do it? It's up to you. But like, have we had experiences with, maybe that's a better, like, what do you think, Marshall? Weed and mushrooms?
Yeah. So yeah, I do have experience taking mushrooms alone or taking mushrooms with cannabis. I don't like the effect of the two together, but it's a very individual thing. For me, the cannabis tends to be more unpredictable, and it tends to lend a level of anxiety to the overall experience and sort of cloud a lot of the psychedelic effects, which I don't really like. And the short-term memory loss that comes with cannabis consumption makes it harder to sort of process what's going on during the experience, for me personally. But I know people who love the combination, and so I think it's hard to have like a one-size-fits-all for that sort of thing. And like you said, we can't recommend doing anything like that.
So yeah, and I kind of resonate with that. I've heard like people who really enjoy it together. But here's the thing: like, if somebody is in a place where all of this stuff is legal and you're doing this, then, and you don't have experiences, then start with a pure experience. Like, don't start mixing it immediately. So like, go for the mushrooms first. But I personally, I agree with you, Marshall. I have the same thing. I actually love when the mushroom journey has peaked and is coming down. I have this hyper focus, hyper clarity, like almost feeling like a superhuman. I can do physically things that I otherwise can't. I can like artistically do things that I otherwise can't. And while marijuana is a great medicine, I enjoy it also sometimes. I don't want to take it until I'm done with that part, because I find that this superhuman stage that I sometimes feel myself can last longer if I don't bring in both marijuana or also heavy food. Like, I try to keep away from having like a heavy meal unless I really want to go to sleep, or like want to like start like calming fully down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also think like one important thing to note is that people who are predisposed to psychotic disorders, like schizophrenia or certain types of bipolar, might have an especially difficult time, because both mushrooms and cannabis are known to potentially potentiate those experiences, or at least bring about the onset of psychosis earlier than might have otherwise been seen in a person that has a family history. And so it's always best to be really careful when you start combining drugs like that. It's not always a bad idea, but you just have to be really cognizant of that sort of thing.
So I see a lot of people are posting questions here in the comments. That's all great, but there's so many going through that I really cannot keep focus on that. So here is a little question mark in there. If you want to have a question that we can answer, then drop in there. We still have time for a few more questions. So yeah, drop your questions at the question mark place. It's the right place for doing it. Meanwhile, I do have one more thing that I would like to talk about, because when we were talking before, you mentioned that that the magic mushrooms like tryptamines, and they can make more psilocybin out of different tryptamines. Can you because like, I'm interested in this because I'm imagining like, hey, can I take like some, like some acacia or whatever, like the pescawite, and put it inside my mushroom substrate and then get like stronger mushrooms. I mean, like, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're kind of in like the early stage of researching that, but what it seems like is that molecules like DMT, when incorporated into the mushroom substrate, can actually be used by the mushroom to form psilocybin. So psilocybin is just DMT with an additional hydroxy group in it. So it's 4-hydroxy-DMT. Well, that's psilocin, the metabolite of psilocybin. It's psilocybin has a phosphate group actually instead, but basically it's DMT with a phosphate group. And so if you incorporate DMT, it allows the mushroom to skip a bunch of steps in the biosynthetic pathway and actually facilitates production of psilocybin. But what's even more interesting, or potentially more interesting, is that you can incorporate unnatural tryptamines. So instead of DMT, for example, you can incorporate something like diethyltryptamine, and the mushroom will use that, and it'll hydroxylate it and phosphorylate it to form basically a psilocybin analog that has different psychoactive effects from psilocybin itself. So the enzymes contained within the mushroom are really promiscuous enzymes in that they'll take a bunch of different tryptamines, like almost whatever you feed it with some exceptions, and it'll do this one chemical modification where it hydroxylates in a certain position and then phosphorylates it. And sorry, it might be a little too much
You're
chemistry,
super
but basically it makes a lot of tryptamines that would otherwise be inactive through oral consumption. So like DMT, when you eat DMT, you don't feel anything. Like you need a massive dose to feel anything, because your monoamine oxidases, they just break it down. These enzymes in your gut just break it down really quickly, and so it's never able to get to the brain. But when you add this 4-hydroxy group to form psilocin, it can then cross the blood-brain barrier and become psychoactive. And so you can do that with a bunch of other tryptamines that would otherwise be inactive in the brain and wouldn't cross the blood-brain barrier because they get degraded too fast. You can feed them to mushrooms, and it'll make it so they can now get to the brain and exert their psychoactivity. So
okay.
hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, like, in layman terms, try to like butcher what you're saying. So like,
Thank you.
feed like tryptamine or DMT, which is also tryptamine containing stuff to your mushroom substrate, and then they're gonna make it into psilocybin, and then it's gonna be orally active. Otherwise, it wouldn't be.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, like, I want to try this, but I don't have any ways of like verifying how strong the mushrooms are. Okay, so what do you know why people yawn on mushrooms? Do you like, that's so interesting, because I also yawn. Like when the mushroom drip is coming on, I'm yawning. I'm like, oh yeah, it's happening. Do you know?
Yeah, I think, I'm not entirely sure. I think like the 5-HT2A receptor, which is the receptor that psilocin activates, it must be involved in yawning in some way, but yeah, I couldn't tell you more than that, why people yawn.
Yeah, okay. I also don't know, sorry. So what else is here? Do you know how to stop a bad trip? Somebody said take lemon or orange juice. Is that true? Or like to stop a trip, not a bad trip. I mean, like bad trip, difficult trip, meh. So whatever. But like how to come down if you want it to be over faster. Do you know anything about that? With psilocybin specifically?
Yeah, I mean, there's no, other than medication, like prescription medication, like benzodiazepines, there's no great way to just stop a trip. There are definitely ways that you can, focus on your breath. And especially if you have, like you said, a peer group with you that really understands the experience and that you feel very comfortable with, they can definitely help to at least ease a lot of the anxiety. But short of prescription medications, there's not a great way to stop a trip, but it is helpful to know that it'll eventually come to an end. So just changing the mindset a little bit, which is easier said than done, can definitely help.
Yeah, I mean, and also like I definitely think that like if you are in a good enough settings and your body is physically safe, then sometimes going through that experience can be the most beautiful thing. But like benzos is a way that and I think Valium is a benzo, right? And so I have used valerian root, which is actually what Valium at some point was kind of coming from. And not from to come down from like a bad trip or like, oh my God, this is too much, like I'm going to have some strong Valium concoction or tea. But to afterwards, once I'm kind of done with it, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I would like to, because I have difficulty sleeping often with psychedelics afterwards. And so to have a strong tea of valerian root and to drink that. So that's my recommendation.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, so I hope that it was the battery question. Let's see what else is here. Maybe we can take a few more. Okay, I think this is what strain of fungi is the best to use when first growing psychedelic? Well, the Cubensis, Psilocybe cubensis is the easiest one to go for. What specific strains? Golden Teacher. I also like P++ when I first started, because I was a beginner like 15 years ago. So yeah, these two pop out for me immediately. I don't know, do you would recommend something, Marshall, what is easy strains to cultivate?
In general, with Psilocybe cubensis, most of the strains are pretty much the same in terms of cultivation parameters. The one exception, at least the one exception that I know of, well, there are a couple now because people are constantly developing these weird strains. But there's the penis envy strain is a little more finicky than some of the other strains in that a lot of it might benefit from a casing layer, whereas a lot of the non-penis envy strains, I think all of them that are Psilocybe cubensis, they don't have that same requirement for a casing layer, and so they're easier to grow by virtue of not requiring that extra step. But yeah, I don't have any particular favorite strains from the early work we've done. It seems like there aren't actually chemical differences between these strains within species. The real differences come between species, not between strains. Yeah. But yeah, what were you have favorite strains?
Well, lately I've been working with something that just came from Guadalajara, Mexico. It's a wild one. It's not like a commercial strain, so I'm still doing the Cubensis thing.
Nice.
So what else? Where do you think is the best place to start in terms of learning how to grow cyanescence? There's a few texts online, but honestly not that much conclusive information. I don't know, because I don't have any experience. I would point people towards Shroomery, which is an endless deep hole of all kinds of information, some of it being amazing and some of it being very outdated. But like that, there is definitely people who know. I don't know, do you know some better resources where to go? Because we don't at our course, our online course, we just teach how to grow the Psilocybe cubensis. That's what we're starting with.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'd say the same thing as you. If you look on these forums, like Shroomery has a bunch of users, and you definitely have to sort through some of the shitty information to get to stuff that's really trusted. But you'll get a sense just looking through various. I think there's a whole thread devoted to Paniola cyanescens, which some people get confused, by the way. So there's Psilocybe cyanescens, which is a wood-loving species, which really can't be cultivated in an artificial indoor environment. It can be cultivated outdoors, but it's incredibly difficult to cultivate indoors. And then there's Paniola cyanescens, which is way easier to cultivate indoors. It's not a wood-loving species. It's a dung-loving species. So it's a lot easier, a lot less finicky. And so, yeah, I think Shroomery is really a great starting point. And you just kind of learn by doing it, and you have to be ready to fail, I think, many times before you succeed when it comes to a lot of these exotic species. They're a lot more finicky than Psilocybe cubensis. Like cubensis is fairly forgiving. You can make a lot of mistakes and still, get a decent yield and get some mushrooms, enough for a trip at least. But with some of these other species, they're a lot more finicky and require a lot more patience. So I think don't be turned off by early failure. Just use that as a learning experience for your next grow. And if you're committed enough, you can definitely grow some of these other species.
Yes, thank you. I'm definitely also curious about cultivating some other species, but lately there hasn't been anything coming this way. World doesn't move so much. How much is heroic dose? This is the legacy of Terence McKenna. I don't know. It depends. If you're going by what Terence McKenna is saying, or if you're maybe going by what the late Kalindi E is saying of 30, because Terence McKenna said that with the cubensis, I'm understanding 5 grams dried.
Yeah.
It's even it's almost like a meme. 5 grams dried.
Yeah,
5 grams
it's become a meme for sure.
In silent darkness. But then this guy who just died, Kalindi, he was saying about doses of 30 to 40 grams. Obviously, he said that work your way up there. Don't just be oh, Kalindi said that I'm going to take 40 grams of mushrooms, And I don't know, can you speak to the toxicity of this? Can I die from eating Psilocybe cubensis? Is it possible?
Yeah, so it seems based on all the data we have, it seems like they're physically fairly benign unless you have underlying heart issues, in which case there's a risk. Or if you're taking SSRIs, there's a risk there for going into serotonin syndrome. So people have to be careful for sure. I mean, I don't see a reason to ever push the dose that high. And I think it's easy to look at these people who are considered gurus and follow their advice like the word of God. But I think it's going to vary so much between individuals that you really have to figure out for yourself what dose is needed. Because when you have these experiences with, 5 grams dried or more, which tends to be a really, really, really profound experience. With a few exceptions, some people don't really respond as much, but for the most part, you'll have a very profound journey, and sometimes it's a frightening journey, and there's a lot of anxiety, confusion, and if you don't have the proper framework to surround that, then it can really be a traumatizing experience that stays with you for a long time. So there is a definite psychological risk with these mushrooms. Even though you might physically be fine, psychologically you could potentially be totally thrown off. So I think you have to be really careful when venturing into doses that high. But yeah, heroic dose according to McKenna was 5 grams dried.
Yeah, I also mean it sounds like heroic. It sounds something it's it's great, or
right.
like a little badge on the shoulder, and it's not about that. It's good to kind of look into your own motivations of why would you want to go to that place, or do you have some other experience before? Are you curious? Do you feel safe? Do you have a good environment for it? And I guess maybe it's a good moment to reminder some of this foundational principles of going into psychedelic journeys, obviously the set and the setting. Where are you with yourself, in your head, in your life, and where are you physically, in a sense of are you safe, but also what is the legal space around that place where you are. If you're in a place where it's completely illegal in an urban area, it brings some things up, but also the substance or the dosing, that is what the question is about now. If you want to try heroic dose, maybe try something less before, and then work your way up there if you really feel the call to that. But there is also other things that come to play. Is the situation, or the integration that's afterwards. Do you have a support system? Meaning that okay, you have this incredible experience, but there's no way of integrating it into yourself, and you don't have a peer group or a psychedelic community somewhere close by, or a therapist who understands and has an experience with this. So it's difficult to put yourself back together in a way that like is healthy for you. So like that is a good thing to know before you're going into the experience. Like, hey, do I have a support network who I highly trust and who have experience? Like both of these things would be really kind of beneficial. And the fifth thing, what I think is a good way to, is this, the skill, because you can get more skilled. Like, yeah, you can get more skilled by having experiences with smaller doses first, but also like to learning about what are the things that happen, how to go about this, we have another course coming out. It's called the Psychedelic Journey Work course, and it's done with Julian Wayne. He's an author and psychonaut from England, and he's written a book called Getting Higher. It's a nice little small book, and like it's packed of like good information about how to bring this kind of modern and ancient traditional things together, and how to have a more beneficial experience with actually needing less of the medicine by putting more intention and bringing some form of non-dogmatic ceremony into the situation. So like I would recommend like that the intention and that you bring around that, and the skill that you have might be first more important than the dosage. Okay, let's see whether there's more questions. Do you have more time to be, Marshall?
Yeah, we can give it another like 5-10 minutes or so.
Alrighty, let's see what's the time now. Okay, yeah, great. So
people are trying to combine drugs everywhere, huh?
Yeah, let's mix and match. I mean, like, who else to ask if not you? Your company seems to be interested in both of these things.
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's always best, or not, I shouldn't say always, but it's usually best to not combine drugs. So I tend to think that's the case. There are exceptions for sure, but when you're talking about two powerful drugs like mushrooms and ketamine and using them together, I think unless you're very experienced with both, then it's best to avoid that kind of thing. They both have profound psychoactive effects, and there is some overlap between their effects, and there are differences, but you're compounding risk when you combine two powerful molecules like that.
Yeah. Do you have experience by any chance?
No, I have not combined the two. Yeah, I've used
Me neither.
But never combined the two.
Yeah, so sorry, I cannot answer to this question. If somebody knows, in like, you can guys drop us in the comments some answers. Let's see, we have a little bit more time.
I guess I should probably mention too. I think a lot of people might not view ketamine as a psychedelic because it hasn't really been framed that way for a long time. But at the right dose, it is definitely psychedelic. And so the way we view it at Field Trip is ketamine is definitely a psychedelic, and sort of deserves everything surrounding the experience that any other psychedelic would get, with the preparation, and then support during the experience, and then the integration afterwards. Because we have seen that the people we're treating are really going on these deep, profound journeys with ketamine, these psychedelic journeys. And so they do benefit from the same sort of framework that you would put around psilocybin or another psychedelic molecule.
Thank you. So here is a question for you. Will you be offering guided psilocybin therapy in the Field Trip clinics? If so, when? Do you know where is the world opening up, or I don't know, at least the world where your clinics are?
Yeah. So we absolutely will be offering psilocybin therapy. Right now we can't because of legal reasons, but as soon as it gets approved, which it looks like it's on track to being approved for both treatment-resistant depression and major depressive disorders. So basically all forms of depression, or many forms of depression will be able to be treated with psilocybin, and so we will be using it for this use in our clinics as soon as it's approved. So hopefully within the next 5 years. We'd love to say sooner than that, but within the next 5 years. And then in states like Oregon, where if the ballot measure passes within about 2 years, clinics will be able to operate there and administer psilocybin mushrooms for therapy, and we will ideally be one of those clinics operating there as well. And so, yeah, keep an eye out, because for sure we're going to be extending beyond just ketamine as soon as it's legally viable to do so.
Fingers crossed, yeah, Oregon.
Yeah, for sure.
So what else do we have? Let me have a look. I think I can answer this question. How can I learn to grow? Well, there are various ways. I have grown mushrooms on and off for 15 years, and I started learning from the Shroomery forum, which is definitely an amazing resource. I recommend everybody checking it out. Shroomery.org. Maybe somebody wants to write this here in the comments. And it's a free resource, so like a lot of information is available for free. That's the positive side, and also the positive side is there is amazing community of people with like tons of information in there. The difficult part of it is some of this information is outdated, and accessing it is rather, you know, like if you're starting off, it can be overwhelming. There is a lot of information there, and some of these things might be good. Some of these things are just anecdotal. Some of these things were good 10 years ago. Some of them are actually really good right now. So Shroomery is definitely one of the places to check out. Then there is also some Reddits. You can go into Reddit and you can find some mushroom cultivation Reddits, and you can learn from there. If you want to learn about non-psychoactive mushrooms, then Mycotopia, mycotopia.net, I guess, is the address. Is another forum that is about all kinds of mushrooms. It's amazing. I really recommend. Also, I recommend like a bunch of books, and like one of the ones that I really like for sacred mushroom cultivation is what was it called? The Psilocybin Bible, Psilocybin Grow Bible. I don't know, but it is made by these two pen names, Virginia Hayes and Dr. Mandrake, which I don't think neither of them are real names. So I like this book. There are many really good books available, but I like this book specifically because it has a lot of really nice color illustrations that show you step by step these things, and it's also quite new. I think it's like a couple of years old, like 2-3 years old, something like that. So I like this one. And obviously we just launched a online course, a online sacred mycology, how to cultivate your own sacred mushrooms. So you can check this one out at fungiacademy.com. And that one right now at this point, it costs money, so like it's not a free option. So you can go for looking for free option or something if you have a lot of time, or if you are short in time and you would like to invest into the most fun, accessible, and easy to follow video way to doing this, then this is definitely I recommend it. I hope to see you in there. I mean, I'm guessing some of the students are actually here in this live as well. So these would be the resources that I would give from the top of my head. There are still other books if you're interested in, because like you're asking how to grow. There are other mushrooms as well. You can look into the work of Paul Stamets, and also there is Radical Mycology, is this huge ass book by Peter McCoy, and it's an incredible book. It's also full of all kinds of stuff. It's not a book that you read from cover to cover, but like if suddenly you would need to go to somewhere off grid, or we don't have internet as a humanity anymore, it's a great book to have. It has everything you need in it and more. So yeah, these would be my resources. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, I think starting with forums is great, and just being prepared to fail, because I think, you know, anyone who's tried growing mushrooms enough times has failed a good amount of times too, and you can learn a lot from that. So yeah, I think those are great recommendations.
Wait a second, I have a cable here. I need to plug it into the phone.
All right.
This is happening, you know, electricity. Let me just pick up another question actually, what is this? What would you recommend to someone who's never tried mushrooms but wants to try on antidepressants? Is that, well, you know, like one of these recommendation things again, we definitely cannot give anybody any legal or medical advice. This is not happening here. So like, I definitely do not, I'm not comfortable answering this question, and I think you should be turning into somebody who has experience in this one, or yeah, who knows more. I don't know. Can you add something to that, Marshall?
No, yeah, I totally agree. I think on this one, we have to give the lame answer of you should really consult your primary care physician to make sure that it's a good idea. And a lot of physicians are getting more and more open-minded to the idea, so hopefully they'll provide some solid guidance. And if they don't, search around until you find one that will provide you some guidance without judgment.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the boring answer. Sorry. Where are we located? I'm in Lake Atitlan, Guatemala right now. Where are you? You are in?
I'm in Canada. Yeah.
Are you not in Jamaica? Oh,
no,
no.
I'm not in Jamaica right now. I'm in Toronto.
Okay. Can you travel there already, or are you going back, or is it still kind of uncertain?
Yeah, it's tricky because I'm a U.S. citizen, and Canada doesn't like letting U.S. citizens in. So I technically live here, but I'm on a work permit and all this stuff. But
yeah,
we'll get back down there soon.
Okay. I found another one. I just would like to answer this one because it's a nice question. It's again, OCD Princess. Thank you for all the amazing questions. Can you make a good career out of mycology? And if so, can it be lucrative? So, like, from a lot of people who are doing it, it seems to be like that. And I could go on a long tangent on this because I here in our physical courses, I give a lecture on the mycology trends around the world and how to make your own business around that actually. So it's a long one. But here is some ideas, you know, like if you remember, like, I don't know when it was when in the United States, like marijuana was becoming somewhat, like the laws were changing around that. Definitely, like with the mushrooms, it's going to be different, but there is definitely something going to be there. So I think it's a good idea to kind of get ready because at the same time, learning to grow mushrooms and growing your own, even if they're edible and medicinal mushrooms, not psychoactive, if you're in a place that it's not legal yet, just learn how to grow some oysters, learn how to grow some lion's mane. They're amazing mushrooms. And then you have mushrooms, you have the skills which you will have for forever. And you can only get better. Like mushroom cultivation, for me, I don't know how it is for you, Marshall, but for me, it's like bicycle riding. Like once I know it, I can maybe I'm a little bit rusty for a moment, but like, I have it, and this skill is a life skill. It's for like forever with me now. So that and once magic mushrooms become legal where you are, then you already have the skills. You're ready to go. So I definitely think there are some very lucrative opportunities. And this one I just mentioned about like the magic mushrooms, but there is myco materials. There is like supplements. People are super into supplements, myco supplements right now. There's a variety, like alternative meat market is really boosting up, going like I think it was like in the previous 3 years, 400% or 600. I might be wrong. Don't quote me on this one. In the United States, people have been becoming non-meat eaters, and they're looking for alternative to meat products. And there's a lot in mushrooms that can offer. So like I think there's so many amazing opportunities. Foraging, wild foraging trips. People are doing this. People are super interested in this stuff. So I definitely think the mycosphere, the opportunities that are with mushrooms and mycology, mushroom cultivation, and everything else around that there is a lot. There's more than ever before, and it's highly growing right now. I don't know. You want to add something, Marshall?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I agree with everything you say totally. I think it's great. Mycology is great because it can start out as a hobby and you can do it with a pretty minimal time commitment just to get a feel for it and see if you even like it, if you're passionate about it. And then, you know, go from there. For me, it started as a hobby. You know, I didn't have like a dream of growing mushrooms in Jamaica. It started as sort of a side hobby, which I fell in love with. So you can really get a sense of if you like it and if you're good at it and if you feel like you can sustain this passion for a lot of time, because it absolutely can be lucrative. It's also, I think, important to find a sort of niche within the space, because more and more people are producing, you know, the edible mushrooms and medicinal mushrooms, and the same is definitely going to be the case for psychoactive mushrooms. So figure out if you provide something that those other people don't somehow provide, if you can fill a market gap there or introduce something totally new. Because if you can do that and you're passionate about it, then I think that's sort of the perfect recipe for success. But yeah, starting it as a hobby is great, and just to see if you like it and if it's engaging for you.
Yeah. And there's kind of another question here. It said, like, what is a good mushroom to start for someone who has never tried psychedelics? I'm guessing the one that you have access to and you can have, you know, like being it a wild mushroom or being it something that you can get safely from a trusted source. If you're talking about cultivation, then I would say Psilocybe cubensis, because the same reason that Marshall said, it really just forgives you the most. You know, like you can do a lot of mistakes and it will still work. So we're getting to the end of it. Let's see, is there any, I'm going to have a look if there's anything else that could be valuable for both of our audiences. What is this? Wait, do you have a target audience that you are working with to learn about the effects of psychedelics? So is it like, yeah, like that's a curious one, like Field Trip. Are you specifically focusing on people who need therapy, or is there some other ways also, like, I don't know, like the improvement of creativity or better problem solving, or like just, you know, like some of them flow states, or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all the above. We have the clinics, which are medically focused right now. So that's treating people with psychiatric disorders. But then we also have our Trip app that's launching, that's intended to, you know, go to anyone who is having a psychedelic experience and wants some context and help surrounding it. So I don't think we have a specific target audience. I think it's pretty broad to anyone who's even a little bit curious about psychedelics.
Cool. Yeah. So here's the deal then. Tripapp.co, that was the thing. Also, if you are high from following Fungi Academy, also go and follow the Instagram of Field Trip. And then you can be in the loop of whatever is happening with the app, whatever is happening with the legal therapies coming out. So go and follow them, have a look. Marshall, are you public yourself? Can people follow you or ask questions?
No, not really. I don't do much on
incognito.
I'm hidden, yeah.
Yeah. So, and is there any other ways of getting involved if people want to learn more about Field Trip?
Yeah, if you have any specific interests or inquiries, you can reach out to hi at fieldtriphealth.com, and it'll get, you know, funneled to the appropriate party or appropriate team to address your question.
Cool. So we welcome all questions via email. Yay! So, and for anybody who's tuning in from Field Trip, follow us in Fungi Academy as well. We have a lot of interesting mushroom-related news and things happening. I also recommend tuning in. Somewhere in the link in bio of ours, there is the Mycology newsletter. So we are sending out every Monday, a Mushroom Monday, newsletter, and there is all kinds of interesting stuff in there, and we have like almost 20,000 people there already. So highly recommend, tune in. Our other mycologist Jasper is sending this one out weekly, and there's some curious stuff. You were featured, Marshall, in our this Monday's newsletter. You were the star. And and also check out our website if you're interested in the courses. Right now we have a paid course we are looking into, because we want to make mushroom cultivation accessible, but at the same time we need to feed ourselves and pay our bills. So right now we have this really nice paid course, but we are also thinking about some mini courses to go in the future that are for free. So that's another way of getting involved. Right now I cannot invite you here to Guatemala because that's the way the world is, and we don't know when we'll be resuming our physical courses. So that's about it from. Oh, and if you want, you can also get in touch with me. You can find me on Instagram at oliver.fungi. Do you feel complete? Are we done, Marshall?
I feel complete, yes.
Me too. Thank you so much for doing this. Like for me, it was the first time doing the Instagram live. I mean, I'm actually lying. We tested with doing like a little live between our personal accounts just to know what am I getting into here. So yeah, but it was super exciting, and I'm excited about the work that you guys are doing. It's absolutely amazing, and I would love to be, if it's one day possible, to come and like visit your little science place in Jamaica, and maybe do a little story about that as well, what's happening there, if that's possible. I don't know if it's like top secret science, but if it's possible, I'm open for an invitation.
Yeah, we're definitely very open. I should have mentioned, so the work we're doing in Jamaica is in partnership with the University of West Indies. So the university down there, and so our lab is actually on the university campus. But yeah, for sure, hit me up if you're heading to Jamaica at any point, and we can set something up.
Yes, will do. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and well, I guess we are gonna have another live with 4 Submatic people, possibly next week or the week after. So you can check in next week as well. Peace.
Awesome. Thank you.